the extra mobility that you get from things like Strut. It also makes setting up for that 8-minute Rift Herald swap very effective. And funnily enough, Origen is not a team that actually does this very often. So Misfits can look to try and take advantage of that. And by locking in the Lee Sin, they're definitely indicating that they're looking for a bit more of an early game playstyle. By drafting the Lee Sin and the MF combo, you already have a strong lane that you can look to play around as well.
Yeah, we'll see if Razork decides to gank down towards that bottom lane. He has been the catalyst for Misfits in the early game throughout the course of the split. And Origen now looking for probably their support alongside jungler, because there's so many junglers already banned out and the Lee Sin removed that you don't want to let that go to the second round robin of picks.
Interesting that Origen are choosing to prioritize the Nautilus. I feel this is something that Destiny has played a fair amount. They're looking to try and get him on comfort, and obviously still a strong matchup with the Aphelios as well.
Could of course be mid lane. We have seen Nukeduck bring it out once before. Didn't work out too well for them, if I recall correctly, although I think they ended up winning the game. There's the Xerxe, so the jungle locked in for Xerxe.
Is it though? There is, of course, the flex option.
Yeah, support Xerxe, top Xerxe.
And mid Xerxe.
Put him in AD carry, who cares? Aphelios mid, AP, let's go. Just do whatever you want.
So yeah, there are quite a lot of options. A couple of interesting hovers. So we won't talk too much about Origen because nothing is really set in stone. They've obviously gone for more of a scaling composition. Just because you have the Xerxe, depending on where it goes, depends on how much influence you can have in the early game. Not a fan of this Braum pick.
Okay.
I feel as though that they saw the Nautilus. Of course, they weren't sure where the Xerxe was going to be, but I think that both Nautilus and Xerxe are actually pretty good matchups into the Braum in their entirety anyway. So now you're kind of giving Origen more choices. And also, I think the Denyk is a player that likes to roam. So by keeping him confined in the bot lane, you don't have a lot of what makes Misfits so strong in the mid game by opening up your support to move with your jungler. So I'm not really a fan of this pick, but we'll see how things play out for them. We still have a lot of the draft left to go, and the solo lanes are going to be a big determining factor in how this game ends up playing out.
I do wonder if it puts more eggs into that bot lane basket we were talking about. Razork on the Lee Sin can gank the MF. She has a lot of power early on, and with Denyk there on the Braum, you have those concussive blows. You can lock people up pretty effectively, but as you say, does limit the options for Misfits. Now with the Blanc band away, the Syndra band away, we're starting to see some of that mid lane pool pinch just a tad, and Camille is the next ban from Misfits.
I'm trying to think about what these bans could suggest for Misfits. The fact that we saw both a mid laner and a top laner ban, thinking about Camille, champions that she often does well into. Well, tanks are a very common commodity. They could be thinking about a Renekton if they want to invest hard up towards the top side of the map. Things like the Aatrox and the Mordekaiser are also open, and we know that DanDan does like the Aatrox, so Misfits could be considering a blind pick Aatrox right now, and then Origen going to look to ban that one away. So now your top lane options, especially when you look at it in the context of the meta, are very limited.
Yeah.
And we know that Alphari has a very deep pool. He's a very experienced top laner, has obviously been playing in the league for I think almost 3 years now.
Yeah,
and
2017 he joined.
Yeah, 2017. So let's see the direction that they take. We were talking about the Mordekaiser, of course, one of the safest blind picks that I think you have left. And I'm really curious as to what direction Origen will now take it. Of course, you could send the Xerxe up into the top lane. You could have already decided this matchup is the one that you wanted, and you can look to play safe and defensive, or you could look to try and get a counter pick.
It feels weird to send the Xerxe into a Mordekaiser when... I'm trying to think about how that would work during team fights, because Mord could just ult Xerxe and you kind of mitigate a huge amount of his power in a team fight, that disruption that he would have. But we'll see if Alphari is put on more of a carry role. He has been known for that across the course of the split. He was topping the damage charts for top laners for quite a while. But with the Corki locked in, we still have really no more information. But Nautilus is properly support. Yep. That's about all we can tell from this Vedius.
Let's have a look. Let's have a wait and see. 3 seconds left on the clock. What will be the final lock-in for Origen with the Renekton hover? It looks like that we know that Xerxe will be in the jungle once again for Xerxe. The Nautilus will be in the bot lane. So nothing too crazy. Pretty standard. They do have a strong side of the map in the form of the top lane. It's going to be hard to play through, of course, because it's a Xerxe, doesn't have the strongest pressure early, but what it means is that you don't have 3 potentially losing lanes, because of course they have to blind pick the Corki. It now gives the options for Misfits to counter pick. Azir is what I'm thinking, sorry mate. Azir is the go-to for Febiven. We know that it is a very staple matchup between the 2 mid laners, and yeah, I think that, honestly, I think that Origen drafted for scaling. Obviously the Renekton The thing about Renekton is it depends. His scaling is relevant to how easy it is for him to get onto the backline. Now, against a comp like Misfits have, there's actually a lot of disengage.
Yeah, it feels really hard.
Yeah, so Renekton will struggle, but then it's made up for by the fact that there's Nautilus ultimate that can very easily collapse. You have the Xerxe engage that can set it from a very long range, and the amount of disruption that his ultimate creates is obnoxious as well. But the crucial thing is the insane scaling that both Aphelios and the Corki provide on the side of Origen. It's not like Misfits is completely useless in the late game. I think that Azir is very strong, obviously, and I actually think Mordekaiser becomes very relevant, especially depending on which target he can QSS. But I do think that the scaling advantage heavily favors Origen right now, and I worry about where Misfits is going to look to play through. I don't think you can really play through mid. I think bot is an option, but it's hard. And when you're trying to gank a Renekton early, there's the risk that the Renekton can end up 2v1ing against you, especially with a Mordekaiser in lane who he kind of needs that first few items before he really starts packing a punch. So, yeah, I think that the drafts is going to be challenging for Misfits. I'm curious as to how they're going to make it work. I look forward to this game. Obviously, both these teams fighting for that third place spot. At the end of the day, they will be tied for second, regardless who the winner is. But yeah, I think Origen have kind of stuck to their style for the time being.
Two teams in the top 4 fighting for their position in the top 3. 2 weeks left to go for them, and we'll see if they can get the win today. Let's get straight on into it. And on to Summoner's Rift we go once again. Misfits and Origen tied in third place right now. Misfits trying to do something just a little bit sneaky here with the Oracle's alteration, but Destiny will spot them out and upset his safe down towards the bottom side. Destiny will be forced back, doesn't want to put the ward down straight away, of course, because Denyk could just clear it out. But Nukeduck will be safe in knowing that Misfits are still around.
Smart plan for Misfits. You always want to put pressure on a Xerxe in the early game. We saw Jankos do it single-handedly yesterday when G2 were playing against Origen. But now you can see Xerxe sitting in the top side of the map, does have this ward just sitting in this brush just here, which the observers are highlighting for us. The irony is the circle that was so prevalent yesterday now not working.
I only came here for the circles, Vedius. Yeah. That's the only reason I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Bum, bum, ba, ba, da. Oh, no, I think there's a... Try now. Try... Oh, we go! That's a big circle.
All right. Let's not get too distracted by the circle. We can talk about that later. Instead, what we want to focus on is the invade that would happen from Misfits. What does this create? What does this do? Well, this splits the map. Razork now has full control over the bot side, and this, of course, makes it dangerous for Upset and Destiny, because if they try and push, if they try and play aggressively during the first 2 waves, they can easily get ganked.
Yeah.
However, what Destiny did was pull the wave into the brush to actually try and get the wave slow pushing towards him. Now, we didn't get to see exactly what happened in the lane, but it looks to me that the wave is actually slowly pushing towards Misfits bot lane right now. This, of course, is not an ideal situation for Upset and Destiny to find themselves in when they're not going to get any jungle assistance. The bright side for Xerxe is he will get a red buff, because he did set up the counter invade towards the top side, and because he has the Renekton hard pushing in the top lane, he can feel pretty safe in the event that anyone tries to invade. And this means that Xerxe is not going to be put behind in the same way that he was yesterday when he played up against Jankos' Lee Sin.
Razork was spotted on a ward as he jumped across towards these Krugs, so the Origen bot lane will know he is in the vicinity. Destiny's going to get a ward in the tri-bush here. Hopefully he doesn't think that makes him too safe, but I expect Razork to just go across towards blue. The wave is pushing in. It's not the easiest gank to get off, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Xerxe on his way towards the top side. Wondering about a top lane dive here.
No. I don't think he can go for it. Yeah, I think it's super dangerous this early on. I think his focus is the Krugs right now.
That makes sense.
Because he's going to be very aware of where Razork is. They just saw him walk over that tri-brush ward, which means that he knows he has more than enough time to steal these away. The thing you have to be cautious of as Xerxe in the early game is running into the enemy jungler, especially Lee Sin. So when you have that information, it means, okay, I'm safe to go into this side of the jungle. The likelihood of Lee Sin just showing up is very low. I'm going to get the farm. I'm going to be very comfortable. And Upset and Destiny were able to get that wave to push in towards them, which means that they're also even in farm, even with the existing threat of Razork hanging around the bot side of the map. So in this early game, even after the early invade, Origen prepared well, and Misfits will not find any early advantages.
And both junglers being tracked pretty well on vision for both teams. Teleport used by DanDan in the top lane to get back to his wave. He's about 10 farm down as the Renekton, known as a lane bully, is doing exactly that. And of course, DanDan is playing weak side of the map, as we said, with Xerxe getting all of his buffs on that top side. Razork is looking to sneak in towards the bottom lane here and could perhaps find a gank off. Denyk is quite far forward and there's a big wave building up here. Destiny's got a base check, looking for the concussive blows. They jump in, there's the stun. Destiny still has flash, will use it. The exhaust comes down as Razork chases forward. Bvoy flashing in as well as the heal comes out. And Destiny just about survives. Upset, able to keep his support alive.
Nice play from Razork, but it doesn't result in a kill for Misfits. Good early pressure though. We talked about where Misfits could look to play through, and I like the decision-making here because Razork recognizes that the wave is bouncing back towards the duo of Bvoy and Denyk. He can sneak into the brush, look for a play, and they get quite a few summoner spells. But now, Xerxe is on the counter-attack. He's hanging in this fog of war, looking for Denyk to overstep. Bvoy specifically has no flash, which means that if they can land that crowd control, they can look for a play.
As you said, Xerxe on the Zac will have such long-range engage. Even at level 1 or level 2, that elastic slingshot can come in from quite far away. As he steps on a ward, Misfits will immediately retreat, and they'll actually see if they can spot Xerxe out, coming towards their blue side jungle. No camps up there, apart from the one that Razork's just completed. Denyk realizes, oh, could have placed a ward in here. They clear it out, deny more of that vision.
There's a lot of mind games going on in this early game. A lot of tracking of both enemy junglers. You were talking about it earlier on, Medic. A lot of early game vision being invested, not just from the junglers, but also the laners to see where the enemy jungler is. And so far, no early action, but this only benefits Origen. I think that the later the game goes, the more that Zac is going to benefit. You don't want to be falling behind if you can avoid it. And it's definitely a great situation for Origen to be in for the time being. Misfits, of course, nowhere near out of it yet. They're still looking for those early plays with the summoner spells being burnt in the bot lane. They can look for a repeat gank.
We'll see if they decide to do it, because Destiny comes across here and clears out a ward in the mid lane. I was wondering if Razork would look for a gank towards top because Alphari burnt his teleport, but as you said, a level 6 Renekton in a 2v1 can do a lot of work, especially if DanDan puts him in the ultimate and turns it from a 2v1 into a 1v1.
What does surprise me is that DanDan's prioritized Ruby Crystal. Commonly what we'll see is early armor randomization against a Renekton, whether that be an early Seeker's Arm Guard or whether that be the early armor boots. Both very effective into the Renekton, I think, but I'm always leaning more towards the Seeker's Arm Guard because then it sets you up nicely for the Zhonyas a little bit later into the game. And then following that, you can transition into the early Liandry's, which synergizes so well with the Mordekaiser because of how quickly you can build up those passive stacks. And so yeah, the HP surprises me, suggests that he's going for a very early Haunting Guise, does give you a little bit more damage and trading power, but of course that's still going to put Renekton in a favorable advantage because his damage is just so strong, especially by going for the early Phage, and just the raw values that Renekton has means he's going to keep bullying out DanDan, and he's going to maintain pressure in this top lane.
At the moment, he's definitely got a sizable advantage, about 17 farm ahead, and we're not seeing that mirrored on Misfits side at all. You know, bot lane is actually a CS lead for Upset over Bvoy. Mid lane is basically exactly even as Febiven goes in, but the Valkyrie is just too easy for Nukeduck there. Quick enough on that W key to get himself out. And it's just good stuff all around from Origen. The Sheen was being picked up for Nukeduck. And I do want to discuss a little bit about how Origen tend to play the early game, because we talked, like Frost talked about it on the analyst desk. He's like, they're the slow and steady team. They don't tend to get too many kills or die too much in the early game. You can see here, they're actually 8th in kills at 15 minutes. They are 1st, though, in deaths at 15 minutes, which means they have the lowest deaths at 15 minutes. And they're so good at stopping the enemy jungler from being near their team and getting ganks off. That's the opposing jungle proximity. Their opposing jungler spends the least time around their laners.
It's what Xerxe is so good at. He's basically like, oh, you want a jungle? How about no? How about I just stop you? And he's very good at tracking, communicating, and identifying options for the enemy jungler, and then they mitigate them. And, you know, we talked about how Misfits could look for a repeat gank. Have a look at those summoner spells, cooldowns. Destiny's Flash almost up soon. There's going to be a narrow window left for them to look for another play. You know, we talk about this early vision. Good control ward coming out from Misfits on that blue buff. Origen actually going to start this very early on.
They know Upset's alone now. Kikazablo's coming up. Bvoy has the ult. They can just put him in the bullet time. Upset does use the flash. It gets the Moonlight Vigil off as well. Huge amount of healing from the Severum.
Good use of the ultimate there to proc the Severum to give him the healing, but now Razork looking for Upset. No flash.
No flash. Kicked back. Does have the heal as Razork tries to trade onto him, and Upset will be first blood. Misfits secure it in the bottom lane.
So they do end up finding the punish in the bot lane, and it all comes back to this control ward on the blue buff. This was set up much earlier from Razork when he was just getting vision over the top side jungle, and because they knew where Destiny was, they knew they could commit to the play, and they were able to force the summoner spells out from Upset and find first blood.
And now Xerxe, I think he's now he's in the bush. Does he realize that control ward's there? You'd expect him to. And Origen will rue the fact they didn't A-move through the jungle. Razork is going to get himself a Mounted Drake, or gets it for the entire team. And that was some of what Misfits wanted in the early game. Of course, getting an early kill is great.
What they want, my friend. This is
but they would have wanted more of it by now.
So let's have a look. Ooh, okay. Nice interrupt there from Bvoy. This forces Upset to stick around because now he wants to catch this wave and then base. But then, of course, they have information. You've got to quickly look at your mini-map and you'll see that Destiny is sitting in the top side. And because of that, Razork is then able to come down. They recognize they can set up the play. Upset with no flash. I think his Q was also on cooldown, so he couldn't use that to get any of the lifesteal. If it was available, I really think that he could have actually... it could have been a 1v1, because you stack up those chakram blades, and then you're just like, auto, and then he's like, oh no, I'm being cut up by all these blades. So, good stuff
Blades
there.
from a gun, importantly. Yeah.
So, good stuff there from Misfits. They will find first blood. Obviously, this isn't going to result in a massive gold advantage, but... these are the kind of plays you need to be making. Now we need to see them double down on the bot lane. We need to see them keeping this momentum going because, of course, Origen do have the Rift Herald. So the risk that Misfits have is if they double down on the bot side of the map, they can then use the Herald in the top lane, and then Alphari can snowball the lead that he already has.
Yeah, has about a 25 farm lead up there. The Black Cleaver complete for Alphari makes it even harder for DanDan to stay around, because even though he's got the Ninja Tabi, every time he's auto-attacked with that Ruthless Predator, which hits you 3 times when it's empowered, you get all of that armor shred from the Renekton. It's going to be very, very difficult for DanDan to purely lane in the 1v1, but as you said, we really want to see Razork trying to capitalize on the fact that Upset doesn't have flash, he doesn't have heal, and you can just try and kill this Aphelios over and over again.
Try being the operative words.
Yeah.
Razork just hovering the top side of the map right now, covering for a potential dive. Right now they look good. Alphari will spot out this control ward, which he'll have more than enough time to clear out. You'll also have a look at Xerxe. Notice that because he has priority in top and mid is in an even state, he's able to move into the enemy jungle, get some vision down. Will invest his only control ward, but that's absolutely fine. Gives you a little bit more insight as to where Razork is, what he's looking for. But again, like, every decision that's made is based on enemy jungler position, and that's why vision is so important, especially in pro play. And I love the placement of this ward.
So
thank you, observers, for highlighting this, because this is the position that a Xerxe is most likely going to gank you from. Now Razork is in a position to counter gank, but Destiny has arrived as well. Bvoy and Denyk are on their way, setting up in the mid lane, but no action will end up ensuing from this.
I was so hopeful there for a minute that someone would decide to dive in. Xerxe tried to get the sneak around as Denyk comes towards him. Xerxe will be able to jump away. It's stunned with concussive blows, but with the knowledge that Nukeduck and Destiny are right around the corner, Misfits don't want to go any further. Does mean that Xerxe has to give up a little bit of pressure as Febiven slides in once again. And Nukeduck just does what a helicopter would do. And a gyrocopter, technically. A gyrocopter would do, and just Valkyries away.
Yep. Looking right now at the state of the map, both TPs are available for top lane. The Rift Herald has been invested bot. I don't think anyone's going to get the gold for those plates, though. Well, Xerxe will, so that's nice. But Destiny and Upset a little too afraid to get close to that. Now, because Febiven has roamed down into the river, this will give Nukeduck access to the wave first. He can start pushing that in, and then he could look for a roam top, but I think he's going to prioritize getting an early base. I'm going to have a quick look at his gold. He's sitting about 1,300, which means that he can transition over into the Phage. Still a little bit of ways from the Trinity Force, but you know that that's only one reset away from completing that item. So we expect him to have that done around the 16 to 17 minute mark. Very expected expected for the Corki if you're farming at a good pace, which of course he is. So again, kind of want to reinstate the current state of the game is very comfortable for Origen.
They're very happy.
They're hard winning topside, they're even in mid, they're even in bots, and when you know that you have a better scaling composition, you're looking at the situation and it's a classic Origen. We only have to wait until we win. We don't need to overforce anything. And the pressure just kind of falls onto Misfits to make those plays. And while we did see a good opportunity arise in the bot lane, they actually invested 2 ganks bot, both actually quite successful. First, obviously, burning summoners. Second, finding a kill. It's not that easy to keep those plays up against a team that has such good vision control and such good awareness. And if we could just toggle the vision for Origen right now and see what they see, you'll notice that they have these 2 deep wards, that control ward up by the red buff and this ward just to the right of our screen, that this gives them that deep vision that they keep investing in because they're like, okay, where is Razork? What is he up to? What is he trying to do? And they always know, so they can read, react, disengage, and keep the scaling game going.
And it's about being aware of where the enemy team is going to go on the map next as well. With an Infernal Dragon up in a couple of seconds' time, you know they're going to come down towards this bot side river. So you invest the vision deep into their jungle on the blue side. You invest a little bit of vision in the river as well, and you try and pull them towards you.
Now, what Misfits have done is very cool because they recognize that they can't get Prio in bot, so they group mid to force Prio in order to make their way into the river to get some control over the area they've lost. OG, using their Prio bot, look for a bit of a pick, but there's nothing they can do now. Misfits have the vision that they cannot clear out right now, which means that Misfits is in a better position to contest for the Infernal.
Alphari has just backed in the top lane. He's got his teleport available if a fight does start, and he's got himself a QSS as his second completed item. Of course, it's part of an item, but still, not too often we see a Renekton decide to go for a defensive item second.
Of course, it can be used to remove the ultimate from the Mordekaiser, which makes it so valuable and also means that he's always going to be a big threat to the backline. It also can remove things like the stun that can be applied from the passive of the Braum. Yes, that's what I was looking for. But honestly, there's not a huge amount of crowd control on the side of Misfits. Obviously not the most efficient buy, but you understand why he's doing it. Good source of magic resistance against both the Azir and the Mordekaiser, and of course is to primarily remove that Death Realm so that you can still be valuable in the later game teamfights, and it forces DanDan to use his ultimate onto someone else.
DanDan did decide to go for the Liandry's, trying to get those Madness stacks up as quickly as possible. Nash's Tooth finished on Febiven in the mid lane. Both AD carries getting towards their first item, but there is a slight lead. Bvoy has his Essence Reaver, whereas Upset has yet to complete his first item.
Now, both teams have kind of backed off from this Drake. The moment Misfits were able to get vision control, they knew that they could go back to their waves. And now that they've gained priority in bot, they can actually start making their way up through this river and cleansing out the river in order to give them better setup for this Drake. Neither top laner wants to invest their TP because they know this is coming. The sweepers are obviously coming out, and the field is now becoming dark once more. I think Origen don't want to force this objective just yet because Corki has enough gold for his Trinity Force. The question is, will they go back and buy it, or will they start off the Drake? A lot of pings coming down right now. Nukeduck's package has just disappeared. He didn't use that one. You can feel the tension starting to back. Oh, okay.
It looks like it's still on him.
Does look
just
like it.
As he walked around the corner.
Yeah, just a bit of an observer visual thing there.
And now it looks like it's gone again.
And now, I'm not sure.
Yes. It's like, you know, sometimes
I think it's gone.
Sometimes you get a package delivered and it says it's there and it's arrived. It's like, you signed for it. It's like, but it's not in my house. I don't know what's happened.
Well, it looks like the delivery company did not, in fact, deliver the package.
They'll bring one 8 minutes later.
Yeah, it's 8 more. Yes, exactly. So now the Dragon Dance happens once again. Origen, though, just kind of happy keeping the game in this current state.
It's actually 4 minutes later, but still.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Good correction there.
It's the original is 8 minutes from the start.
Yes.
That's why
Now, the problem that we have to highlight for Misfits. Do you remember yesterday when we had a 50-minute game?
I do, yes. I was casting it.
Yes. Do you remember?
You were casting it too.
Yes, I know. That's why I bring this up. Do you remember why it was a 50-minute game?
Because they didn't have any engage.
Right. So let's now move on to the Misfits composition.
Okay.
And you notice that their ability to actually start fights is a little limited because of this Braum pick.
Okay.
Now, we were talking about the Braum in the draft and how sometimes it struggles up against the likes of a Nautilus, and because it doesn't offer any engage, Misfits are kind of relying on a Shurima Shuffle or a flank or a collapse in order to actually start their fights. So the fact that Origen want to scale And the fact that there's no real threat of Misfits being able to easily start a fight means that they're going to be able to get to their late game state very comfortably.
Yep.
And they have all the engage tools in the world, so they should be able to start fights whenever they damn well please, when they're good and ready.
And that's what they'll be looking to do. First tower falls in the top lane. I enjoyed that little teaching session there. Have you Professorius or Educatius? Get one of your twins or cousins to come onto the show. But
I mean,
yeah.
I'm hoping the clever one of all the cousins is Vedius, because he's the color caster right now.
Ooh, I've got some bad news. Very smart, man. Yeah, so still gold even, 19 minutes into the game. Misfits have taken their first tower of the game, but Origen have answered with a turret in the bottom lane. There's a dragon apiece on either side. And as you say, Origen, unsurprisingly happy to scale.
Yeah.
No deaths. Oh no, 1 death before the 15-minute mark this game.
And it's really important to reinforce that just because Origen play the scaling style doesn't mean that they objectively have a bad early game. It's quite the opposite.
Oh, no.
Frost brought the numbers up earlier. They actually have one of the best gold differences at 15 in our league. And you can just see it from this game alone. They're just so good during the laning phase because of how individually skilled this roster is. It's difficult to break the armor. And that's what's so obnoxious to deal with when you play against Origen. As a benchmark, you have to meet the caliber of players that they're bringing to the Rift, and if you can't even do that, then it's even harder to be able to find these opportunities to find plays. And if it wasn't for that one ward, they may never have even found that kill onto Upset in the bot lane. And these are the kind of things that you need to do in order to find it, and now Razork is looking for one right now.
Nukeduck's going to get kicked back, but Xerxe's on his way. Nukeduck trying to get away, already one down, and Xerxe now caught in no man's land. Destiny going to try and help him as Xerxe flashes over the Glacial Fissure. Teleport coming in as Mordekaiser's going to join the fight, but Bvoy can't get in from the bottom side as he is forced away by Upset. DanDan TP'd all the way up to the top side. He's all by himself, but perhaps do Misfits use this? Do you go for the Baron? Do you call it?
It's very risky this early on because remember how early into the game we are. Hook lands from OG.
Denyk has the stopwatch. Bullet Time's going to come out and clear the wave. Upset took a little bit of damage, and he's going to have to go the long way round. So Misfits now have the priority to push in this mid lane. Upset is going to be a while before he gets there. Alphari could look for the flank as the Death Guards comes out. Upset, Xerxe jumping forward as Upset gets in there as well, and DanDan's rooted up. Alphari now with the flank TP as he comes in. DanDan low underneath the turret, taking chunk after chunk. Flash away from Bvoy, but Alphari chases him down with a slice of dice, and that's 2 for Origen in the mid lane. Teleport comes in from Febiven as he tries to force Origen away from this mid tower.
And now it's Origen that could actually set their eyes on the Baron. They have a big numbers advantage. The teleport is unavailable for DanDan, and with Bvoy gone, and the flash now used from Febiven, Origen is in a prime position, but I think they're going to take the safe approach in classic Origen fashion. They don't want to take the gamble. They're going to be happy with the one team fight, and there is farm that they need to pick up. So Origen end up walking away the victors after that small skirmish. It looked promising for Misfits initially. The fact that they were able to catch Nukeduck out, the fact that they were able to find that kill, bring DanDan, generate that numbers advantage. You could see that they had the same thought process we did. Do we go for Baron? Yeah. No. The mid lane play is probably the safer approach, but then as they approach the tower, you realize the strength of Xerxe. He is so good at engaging on you underneath the tower because he can do it from such a long range, and his CC is so obnoxious. So the moment Misfits just get underneath the tower, the engage comes in from Xerxe, and the flank from Alphari was the real nail in the coffin. Origen find themselves 2 kills off the back of that fight. They've been able to reclaim a slight gold advantage. And yeah, now the game kind of resets to neutral, which is exactly the state that Origen want it to be in.
As we've said quite a few times, Origen just want this game to keep on going. Razork tries to jump away here with the safeguard. Will kick Xerxe back. The bullet time used once again as Destiny jumps forward. There's the Moonlight Vigil, and Razork's already dead. Denyk next on the menu as Nukeduck's going to chase him down with a Gatling gun. Denyk will be able to escape underneath the turret with a good, well-timed flash, but now Upset and Origen have the inner track on this tower. Mid-tier 1 will fall, and Misfits, well, they're starting to break at the seams here.
Yeah, Origen going on the offensive now. I'm not sure how they were able to gain insight into where Razork was, but they had information that he was there, and they were able to set up a good collapse. That then led to an ensuing chase where they were able to secure themselves a mid-tier 1. Origen now with a 1.5k gold lead. The Cloud Drake will be spawning in 10 seconds, and given that they've just reset, they can look to play for, or they can just abandon it. Depends what their focus is. Let's have a look back. So, We can see this ward here.
Okay.
Oh, okay, there you go. That's how they knew.
Yep.
He literally walked over a ward. I thought that that was actually control warded, but it's because Razork is going to use his control ward here. And as he used it, he's like, oh, I see how I've been spotted. And then, of course,
at this moment, Razork realized.
Exactly. Medic. Then, of course, the chase comes through from Origen. Denyk will be forced to flash here as the hook comes through from Destiny. Now, Misfits will, of course, secure themselves the Drake. That is because Upset went top lane. He focused on securing more farm. Again, very classic Origen. Yeah. And he's going to shove that wave in, but they're going to use this priority to gain full vision control around topside enemy jungle. So the risk of Misfits stealing away Baron, very low.
Very, very difficult in Origen. We said just a moment ago that gold was basically even. They now have almost a 2,000 gold lead, and this is what Origen do. They take that one team fight and then they bleed you out from your own jungle. Right now, all of these camps can be taken by OG, and it means that Razork will really have none of his topside jungle to himself. Febi at the highest gold in the game right now, but haven't seen him have as much of an impact in some of these fights as he would like, sitting on a death cap and that Nash's tooth. So if he can get some soldiers down, if he can get a few auto attacks down on someone like an Upset or like a Nukeduck, he will be able to chunk them out very quickly.
Yeah, Febiven is kind of the late game insurance right now, and as you highlighted, he's sitting on a lot of gold. He's very strong. He's definitely going to be a relevant factor in this late game, and people talked about him potentially being the mid-split MVP, maybe even MVP of the split. He's done a lot for this team. And if he wants to earn the title of MVP, now would be a great time to show it.
This is the sort of moment you want to step up for your team.
But of course, it's not just on him. The situation that he's in is a very difficult one. There's going to be a lot of dive on the side of Origen. They also have a lot of long-range poke themselves with both Aphelios and Corki. But Destiny has been caught out, doesn't have the flash.
Winter's Bite will land. Sonic Wave as well, chases him down, looking for the kick on Destiny as the depth charge comes in. Xerxe jumps forward, knocked back, but there's the Infernum damage from Upset. Destiny's been hit by the Sonic Wave again, but here comes Nukeduck from the side. Destiny down, bullet time coming out, but Bvoy has been isolated by Nukeduck. Febiven almost dies to the long-range shot from Upset, and the chase is on for Origen. 4v2 right now as DanDan is nowhere to be found, and the rest of his team may be dead by the time he arrives. Febi down, that's a triple, give it to him. Nukeduck looking for the quadra, but Upset's gonna take it away. He gets the fourth, and DanDan, I'm not sure you can win a 1v4, my man. Maybe look for the Baron steal, maybe look to do something. Tries to get Nukeduck with a Death's Grasp, won't land it. Origen turn their eyes towards the Baron.
And it looked like Misfits were trying to find a pick onto Destiny. They thought that they could catch Origen out, but it was Frost that made the comparison. The tortoise versus the hare. But this is not a race, Medic. This is a cage match. And unfortunately for the hare, he cannot break the shell of the tortoise. They've held strong, they've held firm. And the moment you try to attack, that is when Origen go back on the offensive. You can see here Destiny getting collapsed upon. He doesn't have the flash available, but the rest of Origen are lying in wait, collapsing. 3 members of Misfits put themselves in the river, set themselves up for Xerxe to be able to come in and engage, and then the fight splits up as Nukeduck finds his way onto the backline, eliminates Bvoy, and then Misfits are on the run from here.
You can see Nukeduck with a great flank. Febiven tries to get away at the end, but the problem really here is DanDan was never in this fight, and Razork has been caught out, as have Febiven. He's been pulled back, but he's going to jump across the wall. Razork, whoa, that was a lot of damage. The Infinity Edge and Trinity Force starting to do work here for Nukeduck. Origen now 8 kills to 3 up as Febiven's caught underneath the tower. The Let's Bounce is going to knock him back as Xerxe goes in. Emperor Survive's going to catch him out, and now comes the TP from Misfits. Xerxe, that was way too greedy, way too far. He's going to get shut down as Misfits get a consolation kill in the bottom lane.
Yeah, so a little overeager there from Xerxe. He thought that Destiny could follow up, but the ultimate from Febiven created a wall, and there were minions in the way, so Destiny had no way of capitalizing on that engage. OG still pressuring all 3 lanes right now, playing through bot, mid, and top. And when you're in this kind of a position, it's very difficult for Misfits to be able to respond. Their only option is to invest on one side of the map to try and find a kill, find a pick. But Alphari now making his way down.
DanDan pops the ult onto Nukeduck, the only one without a QSS out of the 2 of them. The Death's Grasp comes out, but Nukeduck's not going to get pulled back as the TP from Febiven's going to try and join the fight. They're looking for the concussive blows on Alphari, but already he kills out Razork with the help of Nukeduck. And now the turn and burn is on. Upset opens up the bullet time to shut down Febi, trying to get in, flashes out. That's a double for Febiven. And now perhaps they can keep on chasing. They decide against it. They want to back off. Nukeduck still at 4 HP. You can't really go too much further. The Misfits are finding a couple of kills. However, ticking health bars, low health bars for Misfits means that Origen will be able to take this mid-tier 2.
Yeah, Origen are getting pretty hungry for blood right now, going for a 2 versus 4 play underneath that tower. Nukeduck and Alphari kind of against the world. Origen, while they do lose a few members, they're still able to keep the siege going. Xerxe now rejoining the fight. DanDan gonna lose his life.
Not quite, Vedius. That's why the play-by-play is my job. Febiven's going to try and chase Alphari out, and they do manage to keep the turret alive. However, Cloud Drake up in just a couple of seconds. Looks like Origen are going to turn and burn towards that. And the question becomes, how many more times will Origen gift Misfits a few kills like that? How many more times will Origen overstep? Because it's not something they are well known for.
Yeah, you can see DanDan, he avoids the collapse by ulting Nukeduck, as you highlighted before. Nukeduck doesn't have the QSS, but DanDan can't overcommit. Then the moment the...
Xerxe jumps in again into the mid lane. Nukeduck's actually TP'd in here. The Emperor's Divide is going to try and separate Xerxe from the Nukeduck. Alphari coming in from the bottom side as well as Razork joins his team. There was a teleport expended from Nukeduck for Febiven's ultimate, perhaps thinking that Misfits were going to push towards this Cloud Drake, but Misfits are willing to give this one up.
Well, it helps guarantee Origen priority in the lane. That means that they can safely secure this Drake and walk away happy. They're likely going to be waiting for the next Baron to spawn. With that, they can look to end the game again. The longer this game goes, the harder it becomes for Misfits really to play. Their late game insurance of Febiven still very strong, very relevant, but of course, it's difficult for him to play against this much dive. You saw how threatening he could be, but Nukeduck is equally as threatening. 3 completed items, the Infinity Edge being one of them. And Origen, they're just going to get harder and harder to fight against if you're on the side of Misfits.
And in terms of the state of the league, this is such an important win for Origen. They were 0-1 in the head-to-head against Misfits. So if Misfits had won this, even if they tied at the end of the split, Misfits would have been placed higher across the course of Spring Split. Origen winning this, of course, puts them a win ahead of Misfits, keeps them in that top 3, but also makes it a lot easier for Origen to keep that spot against Misfits later on.
But it also helps Origen separate themselves from many of the teams vying for that top spot. You can see that Rogue sitting at 9 wins as well. Many expected Rogue to be that 4th place team, and Finn very confidently said that he thinks they can be top 2 on Euphoria just last week. So there are a lot of aspiring teams looking to challenge the top spots, but for the longest time, we've kind of just had the top 3. You know, we've had G2, Fnatic, and Origen, and you know, people brought into question, should Origen really be a part of it? And I think that this game is a strong indicator of why they still hold the title of being a part of that top 3 group.
And even against G2 yesterday, they made G2 work for the win. It was a messy affair. It was skirmish heavy, but we heard from Deficio on PGL how sometimes it's just G2 come at you from too many angles, and Origen weren't quite prepared for that. But here they have a 6,000 gold lead, 31 minutes into the game. The Baron up in 50 seconds time, and as you said, that's likely where Origen will want to fight. Alphari is in a side lane without teleport, but he's still got a while before he needs to come across towards the Baron.
So it's funny because when we on the broadcast team talk about Origen, we've recently been talking a lot about how they don't like sacking waves.